So I think we're on. I think we're going. I think we've just kicked off Rise of Baking. We haven't had our 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 kick countdown.
We've got a live button in the top left, so
yeah. Simon Tech, if you cool, fine. Phew. We'll be patient and believe him when he said there'll be a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Here we go.
So we're live, guys. Welcome to Digital Food Week. This is our first lunchtime chat that we're doing this week. This is all Digital Food Week brought to you by Chapter 81, the Leeds Food and Drink and Lifestyle PR agency, alongside Leeds Indie Festival, Leeds Indie Food Festival, and Welcome to Leeds. So can we just welcome Crystal and Jodie? They're our guests today. And hopefully we're just about to pick up on, yay, Mina's here too.
Hi.
Hi, Mina. Nice to see you. So we're live. And for anybody who's just joining us now, hi, Mina. For anyone who's just joining us now, we are talking about the rise of baking, focusing on the amazing baking scene in Leeds currently. So can I hand over to each of you individually for just like a brief intro so you can just let everybody know who you are, what the business is, and we'll go from there. So if we kick off with you, Crystal.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Crystal Black. I run Black Day Bakes, which is a vegan bakery. I've done it for a couple of years now, part-time, just alongside a regular job. I've always been in the hospitality industry. But during lockdown, demand got so high, business was so good that I was able to just pack in my jobs and just go full time, which is what I've been working towards for a couple of years, really. So it's great. And I now supply 6 cafes in Leeds and constantly booked up. So yeah, it's been brilliant.
Fabulous.
And I rent some commercial space from Jodie now in her bakery in Kirkstall, which is really lovely.
So with that, should we move over to Jodie? Let's hear a bit more about you, Jodie.
Yeah, I'm Jodie. I own Jodie Bakes. I sort of started baking about 7 years ago. I've always, like Crystal and probably Mina too, always been hospitality. And then with COVID and everything, I actually ended up losing my job last sort of February, March. And I just started baking more and more. I'd always been registered and stuff because I'd done stuff for friends and family. And then it sort of got to the point where I couldn't do it from home anymore. So sort of the middle of November, we got the studio down in Kirkstall. And it's, like Crystal, we're fully booked all the time. I supply 13, 14 cafes in Leeds, I think it is now, including like Harewood House, which is just amazing. And yeah, I've got 3 girls that work for me because I couldn't keep up really. So yeah, what to do next, who knows? But for now, we'll just keep mixing and sending out cakes to all of Leeds, basically. I think we're all going
to So Mina, tell us about Wildcraft.
Hi, I'm Mina. I run Wildcraft Bakery. We started about 5, I think, years ago out of my dining room. I'm actually sat in my dining room now, and this is where it started, which is all a bit crazy. And we've got a cafe that's really successful now in Meanwood, opposite Waitrose, and we have a national mail order service. So we now post bread and cakes out all over the UK. And yeah, it's just been a bit it's been kind of a slow build over the last 5 years, and then the last year has just gone totally bonkers. So yeah, we're just kind of all systems go.
Yeah, talking about that, Mina, let's zoom in for all of us, because obviously no one needs to explain why this last year has been bonkers. But why do you guys think that the rise of kind of home baking businesses has just absolutely rocketed, and there's so many people doing really, really well around Leeds. And I mean, I know lots of you have been established longer than that, but I think we've pretty much all seen the good, successful last year, right? Do you want to kick off with that, Mina?
Well, I think that I've noticed it a lot as well, because obviously my bakery's gluten-free, although everybody enjoys all of our bakes and things. And we noticed when lockdown hit, there was that thing of initially it was the difficulty of being able to get your hands on staples. So your breads, your bread rolls, scones, cakes, everything was impossible if you were gluten-free. There was hardly anything in the supermarkets. All of the online people, there weren't very many when lockdown hit. There was, like, off the top of my head, I can think of three gluten-free bakeries that were posting out nationwide at the time, and that was it. And they'd been established for years and years and years. And then lockdown hit, nobody could get anything anywhere. All of those 3 online suppliers, suddenly they couldn't keep up with demand. You'd place orders and you'd be waiting 3-4 weeks to get your bread delivered to you. We had to shut our bakery because we were based on the Penraven Industrial Estate, which is where our bakehouse still is. And we were in a tiny little space, and we went from, we're being open, everything is fine, it's all going amazingly, business as usual, to the next week we were shut. The week after that we launched online, and we were selling in a week what we would normally sell across the shop and our entire wholesale business in an entire month in 1 week. And it was like so many challenges. Like up until that point, we'd been like the bakery for lazy bakers. We used to jokingly call ourselves. People would be like, "Oh, you're a baker. It's a really hard life. You're awake so early." And we'd be like, "Yes, awake so early," when we'd start at like 8 a.m. So we were basically the bakery for lazy bakers. And then suddenly we were having to do night shifts and all of this stuff. And so initially it was driven by this inability to be able to get your staples. But then when people started to get their staples, everyone was just really miserable. And the best thing to cheer yourself up when you're really and I think that's kind of where it all started. For like, if you were supplying 1 or 2 cakes a week, I'm sure Crystal and Jodie will be talking more about cakes because we don't do as many celebration cakes now. But like, people would just be eating cake and having donuts, and they'd be at home and they want something to cheer themselves up. And that's kind of where it started. And I think for us as food businesses, the challenge now is how to navigate the next few months with lockdown easing and the market. Now people are going out into supermarkets and buying vastly inferior cakes from ours. But you can just get it with your weekly shop. And
it's true.
That's the kind of the challenge now. And it'll be really interesting to hear kind of what Crystal and Jodie, how you guys are doing with all of that, and like just kind of, how things are going.
Yeah, Jodie, talking about like harnessing that kind of this weird climate that there has been. Obviously, you've got a massive history through hospitality, but you've predominantly been launched over this past year, haven't you? So
yeah.
How are you kind of how are you expecting it to change and move?
So I sort of don't really know. So what I have noticed is I also like ship across the UK as well, and January, February, March, and all of last year obviously was amazing online. And then as soon as the pubs opened, like if you look at the graph, it's like, honestly, it goes like January, February, March, April. But obviously the sales of booze will go January, February, March, April. So obviously hit and miss that way. So I've definitely noticed like a drop on the online sales. I would say what I found the most, sort of the thing that I do the most of at the moment, and especially because of my location in Kirkstall, is saving mums in lockdown. So probably 5 cakes a week go out to students, sort of in like Kirkstall, Burley, Hyde Park. Like every time, like I'm just gonna nip up Burley Road, just nip up Cardigan Road. And there's some families that now order for their kids like every other week. Like to the point where I feel like I should go for Sunday dinner when everything's allowed, because I like know their mum so well now. So I've seen a big increase in mums just wanting to send really nice things to their kids. So I probably speak to a mum a day and being like, hi, I don't live in Leeds. I'm like, yeah, that's cool. But I've been really fortunate with my wholesale business has really grown as well, sort of over the last sort of 6 months. I started doing Harewood in August last year, and it's just really grown from there. So we've got like Blueberry Hill, we've got the Lab Climbing Centre, the Billing Tea Room, Corner Cup in Bramhope. We've got some really nice places, Wolf Fox in Leeds and the new Bruschetta as well in the Corn Exchange. So even over sort of the last 2 months, sort of when people were preparing to open and then opening, we've managed to grow that side of the business as well, which has been really nice. But I do think, and speaking, I don't have any children, but speaking to like my best friends who've got kids parties also cost so much money. And because they've not been able to spend that money on go-karting or do people still do laser quests? I don't know, maybe until, gyms and they do. Oh, thanks, Crystal. We'll go when we can. A little laser quest party. I think mums and dads really want to like treat their kids to something nice. They've all been doing school from home. They've been literally locked in these 4 walls and a garden for months. So I think that mums and dads are quite happy to spend a little bit more on a bespoke cake with, handmade fondant figures on or things like that, just to cheer their children up as well. Because I think we forget that, a lot of us have lost jobs and started businesses and really struggled financially. Like I know without the support of my amazing parents, I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing now, both financially, definitely mentally. There's been a lot of crying. Sorry, Dad and Mum. But we're not the only ones that have suffered through all this. And I think parents really are trying to sort of keep the spirits of their children up. But it hasn't stopped because they've gone back to school, because they still can't obviously have those parties. So I've definitely seen an increase in how many sort of bespoke cakes, because obviously that's what I did first, was friends and families cakes. But now it's like I get so many inquiries. Like I try not to say no, but sometimes it's really hard. I'm like, I don't think I'm going to fit another one in this week. Am I going to be able to fondant cover another cake before Friday? So that's why I've obviously had to take on some staff who are just obviously wonderful, and Crystal's here as well. So we try and keep each other sane with copious amounts of cups of tea and Crystal's leftovers, which I love to eat. So it's always a treat. So it's been really nice to have like a solid, lovely group of girls here as well. So that's definitely helped my brain. What's pride of it, But yeah, it's been really interesting. I never thought that I'd be sort of, in my own studio with my own ovens and not just be still sat in my dining room like I used to last year.
Well, it's a really strange, in a way, it's a very strange time to be embarking on something that takes investment, like both time and massive financial investment. But so many of us have done it and done it through lockdown. Crystal, can you talk all about the change for you? Obviously, you've been around a bit longer. 3 years, is that right?
Yeah, about 2-3 years. Yeah, so I've worked part-time. I rented space before I came to rent with Jodie. But it was really, when lockdown first hit, there's initial terror. Like, am I going to survive? Am I going to have a job? And straight away, I think it really became apparent that people in the community around us, especially in North Leeds where we are, really, really want to support small businesses. They know you, they know your families, they know your kids. And I think people made such a big effort to buy local and support local. And that's really the only reason why all of us are still here today. We're so fortunate to be in the baking industry, really, because we're adaptable. We can change what we do. There's so many products we can sell. And people have really supported us. But yeah, I think they've bought cakes because it's a treat, you get to support someone and you get something tasty at the end of it, like it's a win, really. But it's also that sense of normality where we've gone from our everyday lives to just everything being stripped away instantly. And I think, just being able to walk to a cafe, grab a coffee and a cake, or even, you know, having a birthday cake delivered to home, or mixed treat boxes if you can't go out. It's just that small sense of normality to keep that, you know, we need it. If we didn't, we'd all probably have lost our minds.
Yeah, I do think that's really central to like how popular sort of we've all just wanted to treat ourselves, haven't we? Sweet treats through lockdown. And like Jodie was saying about celebrating with kids for birthdays and stuff. I know for me as a mum, there's just not been the normal kind of routine and normal structure of celebrations, because you can't be with the people you love, or at least not beyond your sort of direct family. And it's just having those little bits that mean so much to kids, isn't it? It's like, well, how can we make this day special in some way? And I think people, even without kids, are wanting to just like bring that into their lives, aren't they? It's like, how do I give myself a bit of love today? Get myself a cake.
Like with Jodie as well, you know, I've had mums wanting cakes delivered to their children who are students, and people who have just been ordering mixed boxes. I've been doing a weekend delivery service, contactless. So, you know, it's all safe, and I work on my own. So we've been very fortunate to survive, but also to thrive, you know, because people have supported the cafes around them that much. It's meant that they've looked further for more suppliers, which has led to, it's filtered down to us really, you know, being able to supply more people as well, and sell more goods. It's literally meant that I could fully go into my own business, which changed our lives. Yeah.
Well, obviously you've all needed like public support, but clearly you've all put the legwork in a very difficult time. So I think we can only give you all a round of applause for that. Slightly changing direction. Obviously, two of you, Mina and Crystal, you're doing sort of allergen-based or sort of more niche baking. I wondered if you could sort of explain to us why, from a personal point of view, how that affects business and like how you actually go about it. So maybe if I start with you, Mina, being gluten-free.
Well, I am gluten-free myself. I stopped eating gluten, I think it was 2011. I was doing my PhD at the time, and just having loads of gastric issues, which I won't bore you with. But then I came off gluten at the advice of my nutritionist, and it completely changed the way my body worked. And I finally finished my PhD. And the chapters I wrote when I was not all brain fogged and sick were so much better than the other ones. I basically spent my entire PhD viva being asked about all the gluten fog chapters, which were a nightmare. And then, so for me, it was kind of just trying to make food that I wished I could eat, but I couldn't because it would just make me so sick. And so it just started like kind of with cakes. And I was, while I was doing my PhD, I started doing foraging walks. So I was kind of like a forager, and loads of people around Leeds know me as like a wild food specialist. And so I'd be doing these walks, and we'd have meals at the end of it. And I slowly started making the meals like all gluten-free, and then started farmers market stalls, and then the bakery. And it still, even now, is the most amazing thing to be able to walk into my bakehouse and just eat anything without being worried about allergens, without being worried that I'm going to look like I'm 8 months pregnant in about 10 minutes. And like, so it's Ramadan at the moment. So in a few days, it's going to be Eid, and I'm taking my whole family down to my cafe because it's like the safest place for me to eat in Leeds. So we're all going down to my cafe, and we're going to have lunch together, and I can order whatever the hell I want from the menu, knowing that I won't pay for it later, and it will just be safe for me to eat. And I think that's kind of why I do it. And I do it for all of those other people who walk into the cafe and have that kind of experience. Like, people cry every week. We'll have at least one customer walk into the cafe and go, "What's gluten-free?" And we go, "Everything." And they burst into tears. So that's kind of what keeps us going through all of the nightmare, because running your own business is no joke. Like, there's so much pressure. And when you start having staff, like Jodie will know, once you start having staff, everything changes. Because suddenly it's not just you, it's all of these people who are also relying on you.
Yeah, you got to pay them as well.
Yeah, you got to pay them. They don't work for free.
I mean, I don't know what that's about. What if they work for free? It's outrageous.
So drilling into it slightly, Mina. Oh, we've got a bit of feedback. You've been award-winning with some of your breads, but obviously there's quite a lot of uninspiring, as you touched on, gluten-free bread out there. If you're going to the supermarket, we don't want to name brands, but I mean, some of it is just, it's a vehicle, and that's about all you can say for it. But particularly your sprouted buckwheat, right? Is that that's your sourdough kind of?
Yeah.
Equivalent?
So
how did you come to doing it? Because there's not that much. It's quite new, isn't it? Kind of all of the gluten-free options.
It's really, really technically challenging, and I think that's why there's loads and loads of different gluten-free like bakers doing like cakes and biscuits, because it's hard to make a really, really good gluten-free cake, but it's virtually impossible to make a really, really good gluten-free loaf of bread, because when you're trying to make bread, the gluten is so important. And it's like, if you've ever baked a cake, you'll be told, oh, don't overmix your cake batter because you don't want to develop the gluten. Whereas it's the exact opposite for bread. You're told, you need to develop the gluten. So there's a lot of science involved in it, and years of R&D have gone into getting us to the point now where we can make a loaf of bread that is exactly like a normal wheaten loaf of bread that you can have. You can slice it and you can spread cold butter on it. This sounds really basic.
Crumbling shards.
It sounds so basic. Like, you want a loaf of bread that you can slice, and the slice stays as one slice. You want to be able to spread butter on it and have the bread stay as one slice. And you want to be able to make a sandwich that you don't have to wrap in foil to be able to eat, because it doesn't disintegrate. And it all just seems really basic. But when you buy bread in the supermarket, gluten-free bread, that's what you're getting. You're getting bread full of holes. You're getting bread that disintegrates. And a lot of gluten-free people, there's only one gluten-free people in the house. So they'll buy a loaf of gluten-free bread from the supermarket and they'll shove it in the freezer so that they can just take out the slices they need and eat them. So when we've been trying to design our bread, we also have to keep in mind what the customer wants to do with it. So if our bread is amazing, fresh, you freeze it, you defrost it, and it just disintegrates, then that's not a good loaf of bread, because it's not doing what our customers need to do with it. So it's mainly been kind of harnessing the science and figuring out how different kind of grains and binders and things play. And the sprouted buckwheat loaf is even more like amazing. It's the loaf. We hate this loaf. We love this loaf, but we hate this loaf because it's vegan, which means we can't add things like egg to help bind it together. So it mostly relies on the action of the sourdough and to hold it all together. And sometimes you'll make this loaf and it is like the clouds part and rays of sunshine shine on this loaf with like an angelic choir in the background. And then sometimes like the bakery will be a tiny bit too warm and you bake it and it looks beautiful and you get it out the oven and it turns into a pancake. So
on that difficult kind of balance between just like environment and science, obviously Krista, you're working with vegan products, or you're creating vegan bakes. How much of that is like, I mean, I'm just not a baker, I'm a cook. I like chucking things in and like tasting it, put a bit more. No, baking is science to me. Is that upped when you're taking vegan kind of ingredients into account, or is it just a matter of alteration? Yeah.
It's hard. It definitely is a science. Yeah. I mean, every recipe I make probably takes like a couple of days, about 12 trial runs to do. I have to eat loads and loads of cake. It's awful. But yeah, it takes a long time to come up with a recipe that's vegan, especially one that, you know, as Mina said, can do what your customer wants to do with it. You need to know how things are going to be served. If it's going to a cafe, is it going to need a bit of a longer shelf life? You know, allergens are so difficult to work around. You've got to be really careful. do your research, educate yourself, and read packets, check ingredients. But once I've got into the flow of it, it's good, and I'm doing okay now. Yeah, like I feel like my bakes are getting more exciting every single time, and that really was my goal with vegan bakes, is to make them accessible to everyone and to make them interesting and to just taste as what people would call normal, as close to normal as possible, you know, so that there's no difference. I mean, if you can make a cake without any animal products in it whatsoever, no one's harmed, then why not do it? If it tastes the same, loads of my friends and family who are non-vegan eat the cakes and say they can't tell. And that really just was my goal, really, to make vegan cakes taste non-vegan, yet be vegan. And
that sounds like a simple goal, but it's not when you go and look for like vegan biscuits or cakes in the supermarket, and you're just left like, do I go for these things full of just palm oil, or you know, having someone have something made?
That's
like
another issue. You know, if you go to the supermarket, you look on the back of a packet, a cake's probably got 25, 30 ingredients in it. Half of them you don't know where they've come from. Whereas mine, you know, it's like 6 ingredients. If it's made by a baker, then you know they've put love and care into it. They've done the best they can. It's fresh, delicious, but yeah, stick with the bakers.
Exactly. Let's support local. We're going to go for bigging up local. Jodie, coming back to kind of your start, I think some people watching might be in a similar position, thinking like, I've got this passion. How do I move it? How do I know when to come out of house and like find a location? Because you said like it just started overgrowing at home.
Yeah, so I just had a normal home oven with 2 shelves in it, and I was trying to get sort of like 30, 40 cakes out of it. Some days I would need to bake that many, especially for like my larger contracts. I had a put-up table in the middle of my dining, in front of my TV in the living room. My entire remaining living room was just full of racking with packaging on. My dining room table was shoved against the wall. My long-suffering friend Liz, who now actually works for me, I'm just earned some pennies from it, used to come and help me wash up, as did my mum and dad. I couldn't fit things in the back of my little car because I only have a Fiat. So bless him, even my dad now still does a lot of my deliveries for me because I can't fit them in the car. And it just got to the point where I was actually looking for a cafe, and I'd found a site, and that unfortunately fell through just due to circumstances that obviously were out of my control. And I just remember like speaking to my dad and just being like, I cannot do it from home anymore. This is ridiculous. So some friends of mine have got Leeds Printing Company next door, and they were like, Joe, there's some units free here. Why don't you just come and have a look? And that was that. A week later, I'd signed the lease. They decorated it all for me, not the spots. I did that myself. And it just got to the point where I think if you're literally like trying to walk to your bathroom and you can't get there because there's cake boxes in the way, you know it's time to move. When you no longer, you know, you're literally walking out of bed into what is essentially the rest of your world is a bakery. It was definitely time to move, and I just had to sort of look at the figures and work out, you know, because obviously it's a massive expense, as obviously Mina will explain. I think people think that we just pocket everything that we earn from it. They don't realise that the on your property, all your insurances, your gas, your electric, your packaging, your product, your staffing costs. You know, like I've just signed up to refresh my first aid next week. That's you know, another £100. So I think that you just have to be you've got to be quite straight in how you think about it. And because I've got such a restaurant background with brands like Pizza Express and things, I am quite commercially minded that way. And I've always been someone who looks at the figures and will pull a P&L to pieces. So I knew what I needed to be doing every month to make it viable to have a studio. And touch wood, you know, it's going from strength to strength. And that's obviously why I've then, like Mina will have done, it gets too much for you. I need some help. I can no longer rely on my lovely friends to come and help wash up and stuff. I need to have some staff. We need to have a little squad of us doing this now, otherwise you can't grow. So yeah, I think once you just get to that point where you think, I can't do this. I need to be able to sit on my sofa and not look at anything to do with kids, not spend much time at home, because I sometimes feel like I should sleep here, but you just know, it's just like this little feeling, and you're like, I can't keep doing this from home anymore. This is just, there's not enough space. There's not enough work surface. I don't have a dishwasher. The racks are coming out everywhere. So I think you just know, it's like a weird gut feeling, I guess.
Just becomes untenable to go on the way you're doing it.
You can't get through your front door for, boxes of brownie wrappers and postal boxes and 10-inch cake boxes. And then, the DPD man comes, who you're like best friends with now, and he's like, more boxes. You're like, yeah, Paul, thanks. So it just got to that point where I was like, if I want to do this properly, I was still registered, and obviously, like the girls will say, it's so important to be obviously registered with your local EHO and have all your right insurances to cover you for any, like the allergen thing. You need to make sure that, the bakers that you are buying from are registered with EHO. They're probably awaiting inspection at the moment because of the whole COVID thing, but that they're all insured, that they've got the food safety and hygiene certificates and things like that. And I had all that at home, but I just knew that this is what I was going to do. I had to get somewhere that would house the amount of product that we're sending out at the moment. So here we are.
Touching on that, because you're super commercially minded, as you described yourself from your background in hospitality, you've already kind of given a few helpful tips away. But if you could just say 3 tips for someone who's like contemplating whether it's baking, whether it's cake baking, bread baking, or just a small indie food business, what are the 3 things that you've got to hit on before you can even kind of get off the ground business wise?
I think, I don't know if it would be just 3. I think for any small business, whether you're baking, your food, your crafting, any of those things, you've got to know your numbers. What do I need to do? What do I need to take to make this viable and to be able to actually pay myself something? Admittedly, we've probably all never been poorer in our lives, but we do it because we love it. And you need to think about that. You need to then, for me, would probably be, once you know your numbers, having the right people behind you to help you get to where you want to be, whether that's your partner, your parents, a close friend, somebody that can sort of give you a bit of a shake and be like, it's going to be all right. Because honestly, I don't think I could have done this without the support that I've had. I would have probably, some days I wanted to turn around and walk out and think I was making the worst decision of my life, because you just question yourself at every turn. So know your finances, have a great support network, and get all the right things, the right ingredients, the right suppliers, the right insurance, have all that. You need to look at all that first before you even so much as go look at a property. How much is my insurance going to be? Because when you go from baking at home to baking in a commercial premises, my insurance is 10 times what it was.
Wow. So that's really like something that
it's
might not know.
It's gone from like sort of £60 a year to over £600 a year. So it has times 10 to make sure that the girls who work here are insured, that the property's insured, that your equipment's insured, all those sort of things. So for me, it would probably be those 2 things. Know all your numbers and make sure you've got some support, because you might think you can do it on your own, but you really can't. You really can't. Even if it's just someone to come and make you a cup of tea or do the washing up when you're in the weeds. That's all you need. Someone who's going to help you a bit.
And Mina, you were nodding along when she was when Jodie was talking about support. Would that be one of your 3 as well?
Absolutely. I genuinely Wildcraft would not be anywhere now if it wasn't for my business partner, Sam. We drive each other nuts. We're like sisters, but like in all the wonderful ways that sisters can be close, and all the ways that we know how to wind each other up in a way that only sisters know how. But like, I remember when we were trying to figure out how to make white bread, and it was weeks and weeks of me making bread and it bombing over and over and over again. And I just remember her just saying, oh, don't remember, Mina, you're so close, Mina, even though I wasn't. You're so close, Mina. Once you crack it, the bread is going to be amazing. You just need to focus on how amazing the bread is going to be. And like, just kind of supporting me through that process. And like, even now, when it's going to sound really awful, but when Jodie was saying about how you really need to know your numbers and all of that stuff and have everything in plan, oh my God, that is totally what I should have done.
So well in hindsight, isn't it?
I jumped into this like literally like some mad fool. Like, I was doing it out of my house. I had like 2 wholesale customers at the time and was just selling bread out of my dining room. And then this premises came up on Penraven Industrial Estate, and the rent was really cheap. And like, I just jumped into it, and it went from, I'd really love to open a bakery someday, to I'm opening a bakery in 3 months. And like, I did everything wrong. And I can tell you, you don't want to do it my way. You definitely want to do it Jodie's way. Get all your numbers.
So fly by the seat of your pants was one of your tips, Mina. Yeah, and
we still do things really wrong.
There is a place. This is the thing, though. You have to have the balance between flying by the seat of your pants and having all of your numbers. And this is where I think I'm really lucky, because I've got Sam, because I'm more on the fly by the seat of your pants side of things. Sam is the we need all the numbers thing. So she didn't.
So together, status quo.
Together, we're like one fully functioning business entity. Separately, we are just accident waiting to happen.
So let's Crystal, are you a mixture of the two? Are you more Jodie? Are you more Mina?
No, I think my tip for anyone starting would be to look at your brand identity, look at what you want to do, what you want to put out there, and be clear with it. Know what you want to offer to people. Make sure that there's a market out there for it, that there are people who will buy it. At the same time, keep it true to yourself. If it's an honest business, if you kind of touch in with what you're doing, then it comes easily, it flows, it's natural. And just practice your recipes, practice what you're offering. You can have the best brand in the world, but if your product isn't good, people won't come back to you, and polite service as well. Just, yeah.
I think they're pretty good tips from
what you're putting out there.
Well, we're coming towards wrapping up, but I just wanted to say, if anybody wants to ask us any questions in this last minute before we wrap up, we could see what we could answer. So we did have one from Nick Irwin. Actually, I think it's kind of more of a statement, but yeah, it's up on screen now. So with allergens, it's so tough as a consumer, because often you have to find something that doesn't have egg but has milk. But vegan is a game changer in that regard. So I guess Nick's talking about, like, I mean, even stuff, big branded stuff like Quorn, like you're a vegan and you're like, oh, meat substitute, oh, it has egg in, there is a bit of a stumble if you're trying to, you either end up with all or nothing, and it's quite a difficult landscape, isn't it, to try and balance.
And with gluten-free, it's the same, because most celiacs are also lactose intolerant.
I didn't know that.
So I am as well. I have a secret cheese habit, but I really shouldn't. And when you're trying to find stuff as a consumer and you're like, okay, so I'm gluten-free, you'll go in the gluten-free aisle, you want to buy some cake, virtually everything will contain milk. So for us as a bakery, we were like, the vast majority of everything that we make everything is gluten-free, of course, but the vast majority is also dairy-free. And then we have a large vegan range as well, because especially at the cafe, we've got a large vegan following. And because some like allergies they seem to like flock together. Like you can't have egg, or you can't have dairy. And so we try to make sure that everyone is covered in some way. But it is really hard when you have multiple allergens. And this is the thing that a lot of like food businesses don't necessarily put the kind of care and attention into their allergen handling as they should do. And it's really, really, really important. It's easy to say that everything contains everything, but it's much harder to be like the vegan product and to be able to stand by your ideals and be like, I've gone through all my ingredients, all of them are safe, and and that's kind of really
Crystal,
important.
you were nodding through that. So do you have quite a range of, as well as your vegan kind of identity, do you find that you have to do some gluten-free, you have to do some other vegan. Sorry, that was cut out a bit. So carry on, Crystal.
Yes, everything I do is vegan. Like, this is what me said, who have allergies, they have several allergies, and I just thought it's safer and easier for me to just cut all of it out and just go vegan. Everything, no eggs, no dairy involved in anything I do. So yeah.
Well, I think it's about time to wrap it up, guys. But it's been really great to chat to you guys and learn a little bit more. Can you just very briefly give us where people can find you? Instagram, Facebook, websites. Crystal, hit us first.
Yeah, Instagram, Black Day Bakes, on Facebook, Black Day Bakes as well. I'm available in 6 cafes around Leeds: Rabbit Hole, Fika North, Little Fika, Mrs. Arthur's, Cafe Yoga, and Bramhope Deli.
That was an excellent roundup. Thank you. Over to Jodie.
Jodie.bakes on Instagram, Jodie Bakes on Facebook, jodiebakes.co.uk for the online shop and anything like that. And for anything bespoke, I would say drop us an email to hello@jodiebakes.co.uk. And on a Friday, I list who's stocking us for the week ahead, but you can always find us at Harewood House, Muddy Boots, Northern Kitchen in Bradford. Oh my God, if I forget somebody. Like 13 places. I'll put a list up. I'll put a highlight on my Instagram so you know where to go.
That's going to help everybody. Mina?
We're at Wildcraft Bakery on Instagram and on Facebook. We've got Wildcraft Bakery Cafe as well on Instagram and Facebook for our cafe. Our cafe is in Meanwood, just opposite Waitrose, and we've got lots of lovely outdoor seating. And you can order for delivery all around Leeds and nationwide on our website, which is www.wildcraftbakery.com. That's
perfect. Thank you so much, you guys. Just to say, obviously, this is the first of the lunchtime chats for Digital Food Week. Tune in on the evenings for even more from Digital Food Week, and we've also got something happening every lunchtime this week. So thank you for being here, and thank you for watching, everybody, and speak to you soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Hello.